Greetings, citizens. Hey you beautiful creepy human being you. Welcome to my channel and welcome to today's true crime video. I'm so happy we could meet like this. I'm so happy that somehow in all of this craziness that we're forced to deal with on the day today you and I were able to find each other on this crazy little planet that we call home. My name is Brittany or Bratterstein, whichever you prefer, and today we're going to be discussing Brooke Skylar Richardson, the cheerleader who buried her baby in the backyard. But before we get started, if you have not yet had the pleasure, please make sure to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing that bell. I put out a new video every single week, sometimes 2 a week, like this week. And I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack and become one of us. Alright, now that I'm done begging you to join my cult, we're going to go ahead and get into this video. Now, today's video is a condensed crime case. My condensed crime cases are for people who are more interested in short form content, those who do not have the time to sit and watch 1 2-hour videos. They want to know about the case, but they want to just know about the case, get in, get out, and get on their way. Or for people who already watch my channel and just want to see more of me. So if that's you, cool, this video is made for you. And if you're like, oh, I like your long videos, like, come back Monday. Every Monday you get my deep dives, my 1-hour videos, my 2-parters, all of that is on Monday. That's not going anywhere, ever. I'm here for keeps. You know what I mean? Cool. So today I'm going to tell you all about Brooke Skylar Richardson. And at the end of the video, I want you to answer the question of the day. I'm going to give it to you now so you can have it kicking around in your brain while we go through all the details, but I want you to answer it after you know everything that I'm going to tell you. And that is this. The question is this. Do you believe that Brooke Skylar Richardson is responsible for the death of her baby? Make sure to leave all your thoughts in the comments below after we go through all the details. Alright, now with all of that said, come gather around and let me tell you the story of Brooke Skylar Richardson, the cheerleader who buried her baby in the backyard. Our story begins in July of 2017, and this is when police knock on the door of the home where Brooke Skylar Richardson lives with her family. She's told by police, like, don't worry, you're not in trouble, we just need to talk to you, we need you to come down to the station with us and talk to us. So she does just that. And once she gets there and she's separated from her family, like they came but they were sitting outside, once she's in the interrogation room and she's questioned, she realizes pretty quickly that this is not going to be as casual as she may have been led to believe. She's brought in and she is told that the reason she is there is because they had received a concerning call from her doctor. And given what Brooke knew she had told her doctor, this must have, quite frankly, scared the shit out of her. The police then tell Brooke that her doctor had called them and told them that Brooke had given birth to a baby at home alone that was not alive, and that instead of telling anybody, she had just buried the baby in the backyard, and that no one knew about this except for her and the doctor, and that no one had even known she was pregnant. Brooke immediately broke down. She started crying and just saying over and over that she did not hurt her baby, and she claimed that the baby was not alive. Over and over, she claimed the baby was not alive when it was born. But this fact would come into question. Over this interview and the second interview that she had, it became more and more apparent that this may not be the truth. So the question we're going to be talking about today, the subject we're going to be talking about today is, was Brooke's baby born stillborn? Or was her baby born alive and she was responsible for her child's death? Brooke Skylar Richardson, who went by Skyler, was born in a super small town in Ohio called Carlisle, and she was born on May 9th, 1999. She was one of 2 children. Her and her brother Jackson were born to parents Scott and Kim, and they seemed to be a super close-knit family. They all smiled together and posed in photos, and Skylar's parents were the type of parents that went to all the kids' sporting events, Jackson being a football player and Skylar being a cheerleader, doing competitive cheerleading outside of school. They were just a happy, all-American family. I mean, with the football and the cheerleading and the good grades. I mean, Skylar had plans to attend the University of Cincinnati in the fall to study psychology, and she said that she might want to work with kids. Skylar was said to be a good daughter and a good friend. She was well-liked, she was popular, she was on the student council, and at about the time that the events of the story took place, she had just started kind of getting into getting more boyfriends. She had boyfriends here and there. The first that we're going to discuss today, at least, she started dating this guy named Trey. They met, I believe he was like a relative of a friend of hers, and they met and they hit it off. She thought he was, handsome and he was tall, and they hung out, but it wasn't really anything that felt like it was going to be long lasting. So after just about a month, when he was going away to college, they broke up and completely stopped talking to each other. I guess she blocked him on all social media. She's like, what's done is done, let's move on with our lives. And they just had no communication after that point. After that, Brooke started dating a guy named Brandon, and this automatically seemed like a better fit. Like, they just seemed to complement each other better, and not only does I'm going to bounce between calling her Brooke and Skyler because she went by Skyler, but her name is Brooke, so just know, Brooke and Skyler, same person. Basically, Brooke and Brandon seemed like a good fit. She liked him a lot, and her parents also liked him a lot. They thought he was a good influence on her, and she seemed happy, and in the time they were together, she had even started to gain weight a little bit. And that's the hallmark of a good relationship, right? It's just gaining that, like, happy weight. Like, we're happy, we're together, let's just get a little fatter, or continue getting fatter through the entirety of your relationship, and then find yourself where I currently am now. Now, me mentioning that she gained weight in the relationship seems really random, and it wouldn't be something that I would, as a person, normally point out because it's rude. But it was something that was notable to her parents, because though Skyler was this, like, perfect daughter, this shiny, perfect child that they loved, and she was, you know, all the good things, she also had some things that were troublesome for her, that were bubbling beneath the surface. And one of her things, and the thing that we're going to discuss at length here, is that Brooke had an eating disorder. And apparently it was a pretty serious eating disorder that dated back to when she was just like a preteen, and it was something her whole family knew about. It turns out Skyler was obsessed with controlling how thin she remained. Her parents say that they did everything they could to try to help her, that they took her to doctors and nutritionists and things like that. And I don't know, we'll get into that. It's like, they say they tried to help her, but then there's some things that, like, her mom said that were like, that doesn't seem very helpful, ma'am. But that's what they said. But despite that, during high school, it seemed to get worse, and there was a lot of reasons why this probably happened, but one of them that was believed to affect this was the fact that she was a cheerleader. And she was a cheerleader who would get, like, thrown in the air, so she wanted to remain as light as possible so that she could, like, fly as high as she could in the air. Is anyone else getting Bring It On vibes? Because if you know, you know. That's what I'm picturing in my head. So Brooke would go to these nutritionists, she'd go to the doctor, and she did end up being diagnosed with body dysmorphia. And her family said that they were trying to get her to work on it, but that she was sort of like a suffer in silence type of person. She didn't really go to her family. Despite how close they seemed to be, she didn't go to them with her issues. She would just keep things to herself. And that could be for a lot of reasons. Things come out later that would make it seem like she didn't have the most healthy support system when it came to somebody with, like, an eating disorder, especially when it came to her mom. Like, there were some text messages that came out during the trial and everything where Skyler would text her all the time about her body and how things were progressing and how she was gaining weight and losing weight, and her mom seemed to sort of cheer her on when she'd lose weight. Like, Skyler was already a small person, and she texted her mom after the baby was born, which her mom supposedly didn't know she was pregnant, and said she lost 20 pounds, and she was already small. Said she lost 20 pounds, and her mom, like, congratulated her and said she was her hero. So maybe that's why she didn't come to people with her problems, because they weren't addressed properly. I don't know. So now we're going to fast forward to the point that we're at in this story. She's 18. She's in a new relationship. She's happy. She's gaining weight. Her family is seeing all of this as a win. As time went on, Skyler and Brandon's relationship seemed to be getting a bit more serious, so her mom thought it might be a good idea that she get on birth control because they didn't want any, unwanted pregnancies. So they made an appointment for April of 2017 where she was going to go in, get her birth control, and I believe, this was her first time, like, going to a gynecologist and doing, like, the lady doctor stuff. So she goes in to do her appointment. Her mom stays in the waiting room and waits for her, and after a while she comes out, and her mom says it's clear that she's been crying. She's not hysterical or anything, but she can just tell her daughter's been crying. So she's like, oh my God, like, what's wrong? What happened? And Skyler just said that it was her first, gyno appointment. She was overwhelmed. She got anxiety. It freaked her out. And her mom was just kind of like, okay, that makes sense. And they moved on with their life. And at first when I heard that, I was like, seems like, I don't know, like, I would think something, but at the same time, like, especially if you've never been to the gynecologist, like if you're like a young child or just somebody who hasn't been there are some things that can be done that are anxiety inducing. Like if she got like a pap, for example, I would probably cry if it was my first time too. But that's not what happened. On this day, Skyler learned that she was pregnant, and she was like very pregnant, almost done being pregnant. And she had no idea she had been pregnant in the first place because of her eating disorder. Because when you are drastically underweight, it can affect your period. First off, women already have affected periods where it's like not everybody has like every month it happens at this time. Some people have very irregular periods. And if you're very underweight, That can cause your period to be irregular as well, because you need a certain amount of calories in your body for your body to function properly and for all of your like organs to run properly and all of like the bodily systems to function properly. So since she's not eating enough to make her body run properly, she went a long time without having a period, and that was normal to her because it was common. So now she's like, oh shit. So she learns this, she freaks out, and she learns that she's too far along to even get an abortion if that's something that she wanted to do. And she's like, oh my God, like, no, I cannot have this baby. And the doctor tries to, make her feel better, tries to offer her prenatal care because like, it's been months and this baby hasn't been taken care of or like seen or anything, which is just so stressful to me. But Skyler was just like, no, I need to think. So Skyler's about to leave this doctor's appointment and she asks the doctor something that's a little strange. She's like, hey, can I still get the birth control prescription that I came in to get in the first place? And I'm sure the doctor was like, why the f would you ask me that? But she's like, listen, I'm not ready to tell my mom because she's gonna kill me. And the reason we came in for this appointment was birth control. So if I leave without it, she's gonna know something's up. So can I just have it so I can figure out what I'm gonna tell her? And the doctor agreed and gave her birth control pills, but was like, this is with the understanding that you're gonna come back and get prenatal care for this baby. And then Skyler left with birth control pills that she does end up going on to fill. But Skyler did not come back. She never went back to the doctor's office to deal with her pregnancy or to get any prenatal care. Instead, she went on acting like everything was fine and just hiding the fact that she was pregnant, hiding the fact that she was like very pregnant. And the reason she was able to hide it is because like if you look at photos of her, she really wasn't showing. Like you'd have to know what you were looking for. And even then, you could like mistake her for just being a little bit like thicker in the middle. Like that's it. And it's because she had this eating disorder. So as she was gaining weight, not knowing why she was gaining weight, she was taking measures to lose the weight she was gaining. So she, she claimed that she was going to tell everybody that she was pregnant eventually, but she just thought she had more time to do so. So in the meantime, she acted like everything was normal. She even went to prom 2 days before giving birth with all of her friends wearing this like bodycon dress that she had bought months earlier, but it still fit her because she was barely showing because she had been actively trying to lose that weight to make sure she'd fit in that dress on the suggestions of her mother. There were texts between her and her mom where her mom was like, oh, be careful about your weight so you can still fit in your dress. And that night while she was at the prom with her friends and with her boyfriend, she started having some real bad pains, some really intense pains. And she just told her boyfriend that they were like really bad cramps. She had just started her period and he sat there and he rubbed her back and he told her he hoped that she'd feel better, but she was going to have a much rougher 48 hours. Let me tell you that. If you've given birth, if you've gone into labor, doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. So now we're going to jump ahead a little bit in the story and we're going to July of 2017 when it was found out what Skyler had done. So basically, police were responding to this call from the doctor's office, and what the doctor said happened is this. The doctor's office said that Skyler had come in months after she was supposed to have given birth, like at least a month, I think it was about 2, to say that she needed a refill on her birth control prescription. And they were like, that's really weird. The last time you were here, you were pregnant and you were due to come back for some prenatal work. You should have given birth like quite a bit of time ago now, so what's going on? And this is when Skyler straight up tells the doctor the truth. Tells the doctor like, yeah, here's the thing. I went into labor at home. I gave birth alone in my bathroom. The baby was not alive when it was born, so I just took it and I buried it in the backyard. The doctors, I'm sure you can imagine, was totally shocked and was like, so wait a minute. No one knows about this. I'm the only person on the planet that you've told that this happened. And she was like, yeah, it happened. And then I cleaned everything up and I got rid of, all the signs that it happened because I just didn't want my family to know. And she was like, please don't tell anybody. Like, I'd appreciate it, Mr. or Mrs. Doctor. I'd appreciate it if you didn't tell anybody. But after she left from her appointment, the doctor was like, what am I supposed to do here? And spoke to the colleagues, and they came to the consensus that, like, you have to call the cops. So now the cops are at Skyler's door, and they're like, hey, you're not in trouble, but I need you to come to the police station because we need to have a conversation. So they put her in that interrogation room, and they tell her, like, listen, we got a call from your doctor, so we know what's up. And immediately she cracks. She doesn't try to hide it at all, and she's just like, my parents are gonna kill me. At this point, she tells police that yes, she had been pregnant, but on May 7th, 2017, which was just 2 weeks after her doctor's appointment where she was told she was pregnant, she went into labor and she had her child. She says that she started having contractions a little bit before that and a lot of pain, but that she just kept it to herself. And then that night, once everybody was in bed, it got so bad that she went to the bathroom. The bathroom in the home that she shared with her entire family. She sat on the toilet and she gave birth to a baby girl that she named Annabelle. And she said she chose the name Annabelle because she didn't know anybody by that name. And so she assumed that anytime she heard that name, it would just make her think of her baby girl. She said that when she gave birth, the baby just sort of like fell out of her, which is like very graphic, and that she like reached down to try to catch the baby, but it was too slippery, so it just fell into the toilet. She says when she took her out, she was not alive. She wasn't breathing. Her umbilical cord wasn't even like attached to the placenta. And she checked and there was no heartbeat. She said that she tried to save the baby but was unable. So she took her and she wrapped her in a towel and then took her out to the family's backyard and buried her. But what she specifically said is that she buried it. She kept referring to the baby as it. She was really hysterical during this time, just saying that she didn't want to go to jail and asking if she was going to jail and saying that like she didn't hurt the baby, she didn't kill the baby, saying that she knew it was bad and she knew it was wrong. So Skyler's parents were there the whole time. They were outside waiting to see what the hell's going on with their daughter, because their daughter just picked up from their home like midday, like taken to the police station, like what's going on? So they're waiting out, and after about an hour of speaking to Skyler, they come out and they tell her parents, like, listen, here's what happened. Your child was pregnant. All this time and you did not know. She gave birth in your house while you were asleep. The baby was not alive. She buried it in your backyard. So now, go on in there and see her. Skyler is very obviously upset when they come in because it's all videotaped. They come in, she's crying. Her mom hugs her and says, I'm sorry. And she just says, I'm sorry, like over and over. Skyler to her mother, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And her dad's like, you just should have told us. There's like nothing we can do to help you now. And her mom was like, if you go to jail, like it's in the papers, it's everywhere. And she was like, Mom, you're supposed to be supporting me. At this point, obviously, police are heading over to Skyler's family's home to retrieve the baby's remains, and it took them no time to do it. They went in the yard, they removed a little bit of vegetation, and there was like a flower pot. Like it was easier for them to find it basically because Skyler had taken a flower pot and put it on top of the remains, and inside the flower pot she had put some of her flowers from prom. So they moved it. And very quickly they were able to find the baby's remains. Like, I guess just a little bit of dusting and a bone stuck out because she buried the baby like in such a shallow grave. And she says that she did this because she was in so much pain she could like barely dig. So this is the part where things are going to get like, what? Like they're already like, what? But it's about to get like, what? The baby's bones were sent to the pathologist for an autopsy. And the doctor, upon performing this autopsy, discovered that there was what looked like char on the baby's bones. And based on this determination, along with the, all of the factors, like where the baby was found, the fact that it was hidden, etc., they determined that the manner of death in this was homicide, that the baby had been murdered, but the cause of death they couldn't determine because the baby was just a skeleton by this point. At this determination, police brought Skyler back in for a second interview, and this one went much more intensely than the first one did. She's sitting at the table, and across from her are two officers, one's female, one's male, and she's holding the lady officer's hand. And they're like, listen, we need to talk about the fact that we found burning char on these babies' bones. We need to talk about when you set this child on fire. When they brought this to her attention, like the fact that the baby had been burned, she was like, what? No. And flat out denied it over and over, saying that she never did it. But they kept pushing her and they kept pushing her. And finally she was like, okay, maybe I held a lighter to the baby to try to cremate it a little bit. But I didn't like it and I put the fire out with dirt immediately. And it is worth mentioning, because I watched the interrogation footage, that when they first bring this up to her, like the fact that the baby had been burned, she looks genuinely fucking shocked and like completely confused as to how this could be true. Sometimes you can tell when somebody's acting. This didn't feel like acting to me at all. Like she genuinely seemed like, what are you talking about? And she was like, what? I never burned her. Like my dad does like bonfires outside sometimes, or like barbecues. It was either bonfires or barbecues, I forget. So maybe that could have something to do with it, but I never burned her. But in hearing her admit that she had burned the baby, that's when they were like, holy shit, we need to keep questioning her further and find out what else she could have lied about, because like if she lied about this, there could be more. So they keep questioning her, and in doing so, they get what they consider to be a jackpot. They start getting her to say things that would make them believe that baby Annabelle was alive when she was born. Skyler tells police that when baby Annabelle was born, she made a little noise like a gurgle. She then added that she didn't look down when the baby first came out, but that when she finally did, she may have seen the baby's arm move. She goes on to say that once she, got the baby in her arms, she wrapped her in a towel and she just squeezed her and she held her because she loved her, and that maybe she squeezed her too tight and that maybe she killed her. She said that. And this is when they were kind of like, you're not going home now, right? The police at this point let Skyler's parents in to talk to her, and she tells them what she told police, that she had burned the baby a little bit trying to cremate the baby, and that when the baby was born, she may have made some noise and may have moved her arm. And her dad was just shocked to hear that the baby could have been alive when she was born. At this, Brooke Skylar Richardson was arrested and she was charged with reckless homicide. Her bail was set at $50,000, which was very low for this. Obviously, this is a very unique crime, but for the area, this was a very low bond considering what she was being charged with. And she quickly made bail because her family had money, and she got to go home and, wait for trial in the comfort of her own home, just reading lots of books while on house arrest. Now, initially she was charged with reckless homicide, but this was going to change. Eventually, her charges ended up being raised to aggravated murder, which is much worse. And she was also charged with involuntary manslaughter, endangering children, and abuse of a corpse, and she pled not guilty to all charges. Now, people were pissed, dude. People protested outside of the courthouse and outside of Skyler's house themselves, saying that they were the voice for that baby, the baby that she had murdered. And everyone wanted her, well, not everyone, but a lot of people. The general consensus was that people wanted her to get a life sentence for what she did to her baby. Okay, now you remember how it was completely shocking to find out that the baby's bones had been charred. People were like, holy crap, they weren't expecting it. It blindsided everybody. Well, there was another Shyamalan twist in this case, and that was that the baby's bones were not charred. Okay, so it turns out a second pathology report came out that said that the first doctor had been wrong and there were no signs of char on the baby's bones. And the first doctor, the one who had made the initial determination, came out and was like, listen, I was rushed. I was wrong, and as soon as I realized I was wrong, I admitted to being wrong, and I'm not going to lie to them, and I'm not going to lie for them. This was totally shocking, because the main reason she was arrested was because they believed that, she had set her baby on fire. That's why they went back and questioned her a second time. That's why they pushed her into confessing, and she did confess. So this ended up being used as her defense at trial. One, the coerced confession, which they were calling coerced, and the fact that there were two pathology reports and one doctor saying the baby's burned, the other doctor saying the baby's not burned. And I myself, when I heard that the baby was burned from her using a little lighter, a Bic lighter, I was like, is that possible? One, is it possible to burn a baby with a Bic lighter? And two, is it possible to char the bone? This is so gross. To char the bones of a baby from just burning the tissue, outside, you know what I mean? And it turns out this came up at trial. The defense was like, listen, obviously that didn't happen, and you should have known because that's scientifically not possible. You cannot burn a baby and char their bones with a Bic lighter because babies are 80% water. And then to explain why she admitted to this when it didn't happen and couldn't have happened, Skyler said that police had suggested it to her. They suggested that she had burned the baby and even suggested that she heard the baby make a noise. She said that none of that actually happened, that she just said it because they wanted her to. Now, while Skyler was awaiting trial, she was offered a plea deal. They said that they would drop the murder charge against her if she pled guilty to all of the other charges. But she said no. She said that she would not admit to being guilty to something that she didn't do. And she did say that she thought about it, that it seemed like a good deal because that aggravated murder charge was a serious charge. And seeing how they treated her so far, it might be a good idea for her to take a plea deal because they're obviously boning her. But in the end, she decided against it. So this case went to trial, and the prosecution actually had their work cut out for them on the murder charge because they had no way to prove that baby Annabelle was even alive when she was born. So how could they prove that she murdered her? It's not that they had nothing, though. They did have some evidence. They first had the fact that the baby's heartbeat just less than 2 weeks prior when she was at the OBGYN appointment, right? That the baby had a strong heartbeat and the baby was fine. They also had proof that, Skyler had filled those birth control pills, the prescription, and had been taking them. They had her statements, though she was saying they were coerced, they still had her statements. And they also had her Google searches where she searched how to get rid of a baby. They also pointed out just how happy Skyler was after the baby was gone. This should have been something that was very traumatizing and very painful and very just emotionally devastating. But after this happened, Skyler was happy. She was stoked. She sent a text message to her mother the day after giving birth alone and burying her baby in the backyard, saying, and I quote, "I'm literally speechless with how happy I am. My belly is back. Oh my God. I am never, ever, ever letting it get like this again. You're about to see me look freaking better than ever. Oh my God." And her mother responded saying, like, "That's what I'm talking about. You're gonna look great." The prosecution was basically saying, like, listen, this girl is a great liar and she's lying now. She was a great enough liar to hide her pregnancy from her entire family, and she never wanted or had any intention to keep this baby. She had gotten no prenatal care even after learning she was pregnant, and she had nothing like for a baby. If the baby was born, she didn't have diapers, she didn't have a crib. What was she planning to do? She hadn't told anybody. She didn't tell her family who she lived with. She didn't even tell the baby's father, who, by the way, another twist, was not Brandon. The baby's father was that guy that she dated before that I mentioned in the very beginning, the one that she dated for just like a month and then blocked on everything. Trey. That's who the baby's father was. Trey was questioned too because, of course, you know, he's drug into this. This was his kid too, which is horrible. And he said he had no idea. He had no idea that she was pregnant. He hadn't talked to her since they broke up. And I guess he's like really messed up about the whole situation, and so is his family. His mother said that she's just watched her son like fall apart. She said that she's just kind of watched her son change into a completely different person since the loss of the baby, and that she would have like happily taken in her son and the baby. If Skyler didn't want it, she would have taken in the baby and raised it and helped him raise it. But instead, now on May 7th, instead of like celebrating her grandchild's birthday, she just goes and releases balloons into the sky to remember her. That's so sad, to remember a baby that you never even got to meet. I can't imagine what that's like. I just can't. I can't. Now, back to the whole, like, Skyler didn't tell anyone, no one knew thing. This is actually debated. The idea that no one knew Skyler was pregnant was debated because some people think that Skyler's mom knew. Just because of their text messages, and also because of the fact that the pregnancy results from her doctor's office were accidentally emailed to Skyler's mom instead of Skyler. And her mom got them, and her mom saw them, and her mom sent her text messages about it and was like, "What is this? What's going on?" And Skyler was like, "Oh, that's a mistake. You know, that's not what it looks like. They obviously got this wrong." And her mom was like, "This better be wrong. This better be a mistake, because if you have a baby, you're going to ruin your life. Your life is over." So I don't know. I don't know if I think her mom knew. I think it would be pretty fucked up if she did. But it is debated. Anyways, the prosecution did all they could, but so did the defense. The defense really hammered in that, like, listen, we don't even know if this baby was alive when it was born. They stated that the way Skyler had described the baby initially, like the way that she described it at birth, the way the umbilical cord wasn't attached, and the way that the baby looked, was consistent with a stillborn baby. And they pointed out that during her pregnancy, Skyler hardly gained any weight due to her eating disorder, which could result in a stillbirth because she wasn't giving the baby what the baby needed to be healthy, because she wasn't giving herself what she needed to be healthy. Now, the jury of 7 women and 5 men were sent to deliberate, and they came back on September 12th, 2019 with their verdict. They had found Brooke Skylar Richardson not guilty on almost all of her charges. She was found guilty of one charge, and that was just the abuse of a corpse. And for that crime, she was just given 3 years probation. So she got no jail time, and all she has now is a felony on her record. Brooke cried pretty hard at the verdict, and her father spoke to the judge and asked that his daughter be released to them as soon as possible so that they could try to get her some help for her eating disorder. And the judge told her that he just wanted to remind her that life is precious, that her life is precious, and that baby Annabelle's life was precious. But the judge also added that he believes that if Skyler had made different choices, that baby Annabelle would be alive. And then he said specifically, and I quote, "I think that your choices before birth, during birth, and after birth show a grotesque disregard for life." So Brooke was released, and the judge actually allowed that baby Annabelle's remains could be released to her family so that she could get a proper burial. She was buried in a cemetery that's just a few miles from Brooke's home, with a teddy bear grave marker that says, quote, "Annabelle Grace Richardson." Her family then went on to put an angel statue where her remains had initially been buried, And on the statue, the words, quote, "always in our hearts" are engraved. Dude, this case is so messed up and just so wild to me. It's so crazy that no one knew she was pregnant. How you can come to like full term and no one know that you're pregnant. I know it happens, but it blows my mind every time. She went on a beach trip during this time and she wore a two-piece. 2 days before giving birth, she went to a prom and wore a bodycon dress. It blows my mind, but that is the story. That is the entire story. And now that I've given you all those details, I want to revisit the question of the day. And I actually have two for you now. One, do you believe that Brooke's baby was alive at the time that she gave birth? Like, do you think that she was responsible for her baby's death? Or, the second question, or, do you think that her sentence was justice? I want you to leave all your thoughts in the comments below, because I am just like I knew of this case. I've known about it for a while. I just hadn't covered it. And now that I've done all the details, I'm just like, damn, dude, like shit. But anyways, guys, that's it. That's the story. That is the story of Brooke Skylar Richardson, the cheerleader who buried her baby in her backyard. I hope you found it interesting and informative. And of course, I just want to thank you for remembering baby Annabelle with me today. Before you leave, don't forget to leave me a comment down below letting me know what case you'd like to see me cover in the future. I have a long list of cases, and whenever you leave a suggestion, I put it on the list with your name next to it so I can give you a shout out if I cover it, because I know you're filled with good ideas and good taste, otherwise you would not be here. If you haven't already, please don't forget to join the Brat Pack by subscribing and ringing the bell. I put out a new video every single week, and I would love to hang out with you. Yes, you, specifically you, but I can only do that if you join the Brat Pack. And if you want to hang out more consistently, all my social media is listed down below for your convenience, along with a link to my membership, where you can get early access to non-sponsored videos, priority comment responses, things like that. And now with all of that said, I just want to thank you for being here when you could literally be anywhere else in the world. That is tight. You are tight. Please stay safe and be a better person than you were yesterday, and I hope to see you in my next video.